All right, everybody. It looks like we are ready to go. And I want to first start by saying hello, good afternoon, live from the BVG studios in Brooklyn, New York. I'm BVG myself. What am I saying yourself for? Myself. And welcome to a special stream of Game Show Marathon for this fall. It is October 5th, 2024. And I figured I wanted to do something special. First off, I want to thank all of you for watching my videos throughout the years. Believe it or not, the BVG game channel, or Brownsville Gamer channel, started at the heart of the pandemic when everyone had nothing better to do with their time, and a beautiful thing happened. Everybody started to gravitate to their hobbies of things that they like to do, and that includes me myself. I got into two major hobbies that I've always gravitated to, but I never really had much time because I have other responsibilities. I have a full-time job, I have family, I have friends, I have a girlfriend, all that stuff. So game shows, that's been like my heart and soul when I think about gaming, because ever since I was a little kid, that was the one thing that I was exposed to. Interestingly enough, I had parents and grandparents that were very enforceful about getting my education and doing all that, but they didn't mind me watching game shows, right? Observing other people playing a game, essentially. And, I would always pretend to be one of those contestants or even a game show host. In fact, if you were to ask me growing up what was the one occupation I've always wanted to have outside of either being an astronaut or being a radio announcer, I also wanted to be a game show host. So over the years, I always got into different types of game shows, from what we've seen in the past, like classic game shows, to what would be currently on. Excuse me. I'm still recovering from a cold from last week, so you might hear me cough from time to time. But I really got into the idea of gaming because of game shows. Now, that's not to say I don't play video games. If you've been watching the Brownsville Gamer channel, you would know how much I like gaming and the types of games I like. But game shows have been totally one of those things that has been with me throughout my entire childhood and into my adult life. The second is music. And interestingly enough, I got my record player playing in the background. So every now and then you might see me interchangeably swapping records. I have records all over the house. I'm in my living room. And you might hear me play some cool stuff. So if you like what I'm playing, you can always feel free to message in the chat. In fact, I kind of need to refresh my laptop screen because I want to make sure that if people are actually watching what I'm doing as we speak, that if you want to send a message or if you want to be a part of the conversation and send a text, it's not a text, a chat, more than happy to reply back and respond. But I just want to make sure that I have all that stuff up here. Yep, my chat is running. So, with that being said, why are you seeing this rotating wheel full of game show names? Well, tonight, what I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt to play every single game that you see here on the wheel. Now, you're wondering, how do I have these games? Well, in my, younger 20s, my teenage years, there were programmers from the game show community that created homebrew games, okay? And so what I am very fortunate to have is a bunch of homebrew game show games. And I also have some games that were purchased for consoles. So I know I have stuff from the Nintendo Switch, along with one game in particular from the PlayStation 4. And what I've done is that I've placed all the names of very popular game shows that you might have seen one day or another, and maybe some game shows you've never even heard of. In fact, there is at least one game on this board that is not a real game show. It is, I guess, a concept that one of the designers created. And so if we were to even play, which we will because I'm playing every single game, but when we get to that, I'm going to have to orchestrate some fake game. And then hopefully you would be able to just tune in and watch and see what happens. So we're going to get started. And one other thing I need to do aside from the stream, I'm also going to record this. So that way, if I want to chop it up and show some highlights, because who's to say, you might see some pretty cool stuff. I want to be able to do that. Now, if you're curious about the games that I'm playing, you can definitely feel free to just simply go on and type in the chat, hey, what about this game? Where did you get this from? Feel free to ask questions. But the one other major thing that I really want to point out before I get into this whole thing is that you're wondering, why do you see the Price is Right $ thing on the corner right above where my picture box is? Well, to keep the whole idea of a marathon going, obviously the object of the game is to the object of this whole thing I'm doing is to play games and each game try to earn fake money. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do something very interesting. And I'm going to do this on behalf of my fans. For every $1 million virtually in the game, I am going to randomly select one of my subscribers, and I'm going to message them and send them a gift. I'm not going to tell them what it is, but I'm going to do that so, I don't know, maybe people would actually give a damn to watch my stuff, but also to try to make things interactive and maybe, surprise someone with something that you would never have imagined. So, hopefully when or if I hit that $1 million mark, or for every $1 million that I do, I will basically do a special donation to one of my followers. I have not so many followers, but I do have enough where if that happens, I will definitely send a special gift. And trust me, I'm a man of my word, so I'll make sure to make that happen if or when that $1 million occur. And so again, if $1 million is hit, I'll send out a special prize to one of my subscribers. And if I do it again with 2 million, 3 million, so for every million, there's going to be a special subscriber that I'm going to put on my wheel, and I'm going to send them a very special prize. So here's how this is going to work. The way it's going to work is that I have my random wheel right here full of game show titles ranging from such great hits like Wheel of Fortune, Family Feud, Deal or No Deal, High Rollers, Hollywood Squares, Jeopardy, Pressure Luck, and some names you never might have heard of. Like, for instance, Hot Potato. I bet you somebody doesn't know much about what that game show's about. Or Color of Money. Or not Color of Money, Color Wars, which is not even a real game show. That was that concept idea that I was telling you about. That's there. There are some names that did have a game show, but wasn't really all that popular, like Set for Life. That's on the wheel. Russian Roulette. That's on the wheel. Win Tuition. That's on the wheel. Make the Grade, which was a game show on Nickelodeon back in the early 90s, late 80s. That's on the wheel. So all this to say, we're going to play all these games, and depending on how much money I win, special things are going to be given away. And it's a marathon, so we're going all night. I'm going to try to go as long as I can. And keep in mind, I also have a potential special guest. If you've been watching our CFT, the college football tournament, that other guy is going to be making an appearance this evening. And who's to say he might join in on the action on some of these game shows. But we're not going to waste any time now. We're going to get right into it. And again, if you're watching this, I hope that you enjoy this. And if you have any questions, feel free to hit me up on the chat. It's open, and I'm more than happy to, answer any questions. But right now, here's what we're going to do. I have my wheel here, and we're going to do a drawing. And we're going to do a drawing where I'm going to reveal 10 game shows at a time, and we'll call it like a segment of game shows that I'll try to amass some monies. All right? There should be about maybe 30 to 35 titles. Let me actually confirm. No, I have 32 titles. All right, so there's 32 titles on the wheel, so that's 32 games that I'm going to test out. I'm going to be honest with you. There are some games here that are broken. Okay? And you'll see what I mean when we get there, if it happens. But when we do, we'll creatively come up with something. So, I do see a special guest already on the chat. And I did say that other guy might make an appearance. I didn't know that he would be online. But I promise you he's going to be here in person. And hopefully he'll join in on all the action. But right now, I'm going to start with the first wave of games. There's 32 of them. And we're going to see what the first 10 are going to be about. So here's the first segment. And I'm going to roll and spin the wheel. And we're going to get things started right now. And we're going to start with the very first game, which I think is the most annoying game to play in terms of these PC games that I have. I don't even know if I'm even going to finish this game. But like I said, I'm going to play every single game, and I'm going to let you see how those games operate. So the first game is going to be Super Password. And for those that don't know Super Password, it's a game show that was hosted by Bill Convey, who was very popular in the 70s and 80s, and he did a lot of game shows. He did Tattletales. He did, I think that's the one that I know him the most. I know he did other shows. He also did Broadway and other things. But he was very popular for hosting Super Password, which is a game show that continues the legacy that was originally done in the mid-60s by Al Ludden. So that's going to be our first game. Here comes game number 2. And game number 2, we're going to be playing Weakest Link Express. So that's the game show that is currently on NBC. Originally came out in the early 2000s. Originally hosted by Ann Robinson. Now hosted by Jane Lynch, most famous from the show Glee. She is a good host, so is Ann Robinson, and I'm going to play a miniature version of that particular game, where I'm going to try to answer as many questions, going up a chain, and securing money along the way. So that's going to be number 2. And I'm writing this down on my little index card here, so I can keep track of the games that we're going to be playing, so that way you know what's going on. So number 2 is going to be The Weakest Link Express. Now, number 3. And our third game is going to be Classic Concentration. And Classic Concentration, a game show that I'll tell you right now is one of the oldest game shows in terms of its inception. It was one of the first major game shows hosted on NBC, originally hosted by Hugh Downs, and then got revived from other game show hosts all the way to Alex Trebek. In fact, that's the version that I'm going to demonstrate. It's pretty much a game where you match prizes, and then when you match prizes, you get to see a piece of a puzzle, which is kind of like a rhombus. Oh, a rebus, if that's the proper way to pronounce it. A rebus puzzle where you get like little images, and the images symbolizes words, and your job is to come up with the phrase that's being hidden from the players, right? And the bonus game is pretty cool because you can win a new car, but it's a question of which car you could win based on how you match, etc., etc. So yeah, Classic Concentration, that's going to be number 3. Number 4. And number 4 is actually the one game show that I think, of all the game shows that I have on my computer, I think I play this religiously. In fact, the $ that you see above my screen kind of gives you the hint of what are my favorite game shows. I will say this is not my favorite game show, like my number 1 most favorite game show, but it's definitely in the top 5. I would argue that this game show is probably 3rd on my list of favorite game shows ever. And if you don't know what The Price is Right is, first off, shame on you, and I question whether you should even be on this channel, but again, I don't want to gatekeep. But if you don't know what this game show is, this game show originally came out in the mid-50s, okay? In fact, it was one of NBC's not just earliest game shows, but its most popular in terms of pretty much your evening primetime television program where the host Bill Cullen, a legend, and we're going to be playing some of his game shows too, but he was the original OG. Before Bob Barker, it was him, right? And you had 4 contestants. The show took place right in New York City, and, it was pretty much like a one-bid game. You get an item, you place a bid, and whoever gets closest to the actual retail price without going over, they win the prize. It's not what we knew, like my age type of people that have seen The Price is Right, but that's where it came from. And then we go into the early 70s, and they decided to revive The Price is Right and called it The New Price is Right. And it was hosted by Bob Barker, the one that we all grew up watching. Okay, and that game show, that took place since the early 70s, and then ultimately Bob Barker retired, and now the version that we know today, hosted by Drew Carey, a good guy in terms of, solid game show host. We're going to be playing that edition, and I look forward to it because the way that this game show is performed on this homebrew game, I'm going to tell you right now, the TV mode is amazing. And so you're going to see why once I get there, but I can already tell that my record is scratching, so I'm going to take a quick moment to fix it. All right, so I guess that got fixed. Here we go. So now, I'm back, and we're going to go into the next game. But we know Price is Right is number 4. Let's go to number 5. The Joker's Wild. Now, The Joker's Wild is one of those prolific game shows that, honestly, if you know, in terms of how impactful this game show is. First of all, The Joker's Wild, again, a very classic game show going back into the late 50s, early 60s, hosted by Jack Barry, a very pivotal name in the game show history lore in the United States. When there were game shows that really became popular in the 50s, the showrunners, the people that were able to make those games happen, Jack Barry was one of them. If you also thought about who are the most impactful game show MCs of all time, the Alex Trebeks, the Bob Barkers, the Dick Clarks, the Monty Halls. Well, Jack Barry, if you had to create that Mount Rushmore of most modern game show hosts in terms of their impact, he would be on that list. I mean, this is the guy that hosted the very famous 21 that led into the big game show scandals of the early 60s. Not only was he the host, that was his show. All right? And once that show bombed because of all the scamming and cheating that took place, game shows kind of fell flat for a while in the 60s. Not to say it didn't exist. Of course, they still did, right? But it didn't have that type of impact of viewership because of all the shenanigans that were done. So, going into the 60s, the late 60s and early 70s, Jack Barry started to, try to rebuild his name in the game show business. And The Joker's Wild is one of those major impactful game shows that I would argue that just made it so entertaining. It's like you're at a slot machine, and instead of cherries and, bells and pineapples and whatever, you have categories. And your job is to try to amass a certain amount of money and even beat the devil along the way. So I really like that game show, and I have a version of it. And we're already at 5, so let's go to our 6th. I promise you, when we do the next 10, I won't be going into long rants, but it's just nice to know the history. Number 6 is going to be Win Tuition. Now, Win Tuition is an interesting game show because This game show was hosted by Mark Summers. If you know who Mark Summers is, that's the dude that hosted the famous, Double Dare. This was a game show that was done by Game Show Network in the early 2000s, where people would strive to win thousands of dollars for their child or for themselves college tuition. So there's a chance that the top prize, one could win $50,000. So that's pretty much the nuts and bolts of the show, and we're going to play that. Let's go to number 7. Number 7 is going to be Whammy, the all-new Press Your Luck. Okay, so finally we get to this point where I can show off something pretty cool that I just bought, and it's a buzzer. I just got myself this USB buzzer from Etsy, and shout out to, I think his name is Razzer. He created this buzzer that runs on USB, and it works. It works, man. I love it. And I'm going to test it out, because if you know anything about the Press Your Luck game show, which is still, interestingly enough, still played today on ABC, hosted by Elizabeth Banks, by the way, really good. She's a really good game show host. If you haven't watched her series of the Press Your Luck series, you should. It's worth a watch. I like it. It gets the BVG seal of approval. But anyway, Whammy is this version that was created in the 2000s by, what's his name? Todd Newton. Todd Newton. See? Memory still works up here. So Todd Newton, he hosted this new modern version of the take of the, famous Press Your Luck, where the object of the game is to try to amass a lot of money and cash and prizes while avoiding the whammy. The whammy version that you're seeing here is pretty cool, because the way that it plays off of this game, it's super interesting, even from the beginning of the game all the way to the end. So super excited. That's going to be on the list. Let's go to number 8. And with number 8, we're going to play the game Bullseye. And Bullseye is the game show hosted by, what's his name? Jim Lange. Yes, if you know who Jim Lange is, he hosted the $100,000 Name That Tune. He also hosted the dating game, I believe it was, and the $1 million, Chance of a Lifetime, many other game shows. So Bullseye is a game kind of in the same vein as The Joker's Wild. In fact, I believe it was produced by Jack Berry Productions. The object of the game is just like, The Joker's Wild. You will have two screens with two different categories, and then there's a bottom screen that tells you this number of questions that you have to answer in order for you to earn the multiple of the money that you're trying to amass. And the first person to get about $2,500 or $3,000 wins the game, and then they get to go to Bonus Island as they try to avoid not the dragon, but avoid the lightning. And if you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, that's okay. I'm going to play it anyway, and then you'll figure out what I mean when we get there. But it's an interesting game. If you like the show The Joker's Wild, Bullseye's right up your park. Number 9. Number 9 is going to be my favorite game show of all game shows. One of my favorite. It's actually number 2. All right. The number 1 favorite game show that I like, that unfortunately, at least not right now, I have in front of us, is Sail the Century. That's my favorite game show. If you don't know what Sail the Century is, look it up. But I do have a homebrew version, and it's a flash version. It's not to say that I can't do it tonight. I just have to find that file. It's somewhere on my computer. I have like multiple computers. I have my desktop that's running the streaming. I have my laptop that I'm looking for with the display. I have some other laptops and other shit. So it's somewhere. And if I can find it before this game show marathon is over, I'm going to show it to all of you. Now, why the hell am I saying all this and not talking about Scrabble? Here's why. Scrabble is my second favorite game show of all time. Scrabble is the game show you knew all your life, but never quite like this, right? That's the famous catchphrase. It is a show hosted by Chuck Woolery, the same dude that used to host Love Connection and did the original Wheel of Fortune before Pat Sajak in the 70s. It's a game where two players face this big-ass Scrabble board right in front of them, and their job is to figure out a bunch of words based on really clever clues and do it with cool-ass sound effects and graphics. I'm going to leave it at that. I love it. I really wish. And I believe there's some sort of rendition of this that's happening on CW, I believe. I haven't really caught a chance to watch it. Honestly, I don't really have CW. Like, I don't have cable. I just have streaming services, like I guess every human being these days. But I do have like this antenna that I don't really get that channel to see it. Maybe I should go online on YouTube and give a damn to watch. But the point is the 80s version rocked. This is the version that I have, and I'm definitely playing it in the first wave. I am hella excited. So that's number 9. Let's go to the 10th and final game to wrap up the first segment of Game Show Marathon. And it's going to be, interestingly, a console game. Finally, number 10 is going to be Family Feud. Family Feud is a game show that if you don't know, you better ask somebody. It's a game of two feeling families trying to figure out what they know about the world around them through surveys. Okay? Currently hosted by Steve Harvey, hosted by amazing MCs from, let me see if I know my Family Feud history. Richard Dawson, the original, Ray Combs, the second from the 80s, Louis Anderson when they first revived it, Richard Herr from Home Improvement, he hosted it, John O'Leary or John O'Reilly, I think it's, you know who I'm talking about, but I know his first name is John. I think it's O'Leary or something. I got to look it up. He hosted it. And then finally, the current MC, Steve Harvey, he's the current host of Family Feud. See, this is just how much I know about game shows, that I can even go down the lineage of who hosted from the very beginning to now. And what do you know? I have a video game, PlayStation 4, Ubisoft edition of Family Feud. And I've only played this game maybe once or twice ever. So I'm going to boot it up on my PS4 because I do have a PS5, but it's the digital edition, so I don't have the disc drive. So I'm going to have to boot up my PlayStation 4 Pro, and I'm going to play that, and that will wrap up the first segment of the game show marathon. So just to tell you, once again, what am I playing in the first 10 games? It's Super Password, followed by The Weakest Link, Express, then Classic Concentration, which I low-key am not looking forward to because the way the puzzles are written, it's going to take forever to finish, but we'll see if this happens. The Price is Right, which is one of the game shows that I'm looking forward so much to do that I'm actually going to pretend to be the MC for that because I really like how the TV version is played on this version. Looking forward to it. Then The Joker's Wild, Win Tuition, Whammy, Bullseye, my second favorite game show of all time, Scrabble, and then we'll wrap it up with a console edition of Family Feud. This is Brownsville Gamer, and we're going to play the first of our mini games of the Game Show Marathon. I'm just going to take a brief break so I can take care of myself and get things set up, and then we'll start our very first game, which is Super Password. It'll be a moment, but I'll be right back.